Welcome to the Shattered Idols podcast. My name is Austin, and I'm accompanied by my co-host over here, Alex.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good.
How are you feeling?
I feel great. I'm excited.
This is our first time doing this. This is episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
So, stick along with us. We're going to learn as we go, but we've got quite the show for you today. We are musicians. We're not very accomplished.
Yep.
But we are musicians. We know a lot about it. And we enjoy talking about musicians just as much as we enjoy making music. So, without further ado, we're going to go into what this show is about. Sort of a synopsis to get you geared up for what we're going to talk about today. So, we all pretty much listen to music to some capacity, right? And many of us, we have our heroes, and they have written our life soundtracks, or they've written anthems that we just kind of go to when we're in any sort of mood or we're at any sort of event. Some people worship these musicians as if they're some higher deity who live amongst the clouds, and every so often they gift us with these beautiful ballads from the heavens. They're these artists, these idols, they're role models. They're pillars of the community for some people. But our show here is all about displaying the humanity in every musician, and primarily we will focus on the downfalls of these famous or accomplished music makers from all eras and all genres. A lot of these shiny pillars, we will find out, come crashing down. Whether it be through personal battles or exterior circumstances, the spotlight often has a way of eroding those who stand within its beam. Today, in the spotlight, we have a band. A hair metal band, a hard rock band, a glam metal band. Great White.
Nice.
They are a stereotypically 80s rock band, and they have a horrific tragedy in the middle of their career. So, Alex, what do you know about Great White?
Yeah. Dang. Not much. I think we've talked about them a little bit in the past. I know they were around the same time as Motley Crue, bands like that. So it's that same era, but otherwise not much. We did take a little listen to some of their songs right before this.
We listened to their greatest hit.
Yeah.
And some other ones.
Never heard of it.
What'd you think of it?
Sounded like bad Motley Crue.
Yep. I would agree.
Sounded like rock radio.
Mm-hmm.
Just, at like 1:23 in the afternoon. No one's listening. They're just playing something.
Yeah, they're just listening on their lunch break.
Yeah. They're rolling something old because they have to.
Yeah, they don't want to be listening to them.
Yeah, it's just something they put on.
But because they don't have access to Bluetooth or anything like that, probably.
Yeah, and they're stuck in the rock radio room. Otherwise, no, I don't know anything. And I think that's something to note, is like going forward, this is the first episode, so we are talking about, we talked about previously, he let me know a little bit about this band, but going forward, unless he knows or I know about the band before we talk about it, it's going to be a surprise to the other person.
Right.
So this is the one time.
There are a lot of things I have not told you.
Mm-hmm. I'm very excited.
We're going to get into that.
I heard there's a tragedy, so...
There is a tragedy. That part will not be funny at all, by the way, so...
Okay.
Keep in mind that there's going to be some brutality in this episode. But this is a wild ride. It's your stereotypical 80s movie of rock stars. This happened in real life, though. Bunch of coke, girls, shitty power chords, all of it. It's all happening right here today with Great White.
Well, I'm excited for it's going to be just like the Motley Crue movie.
Yeah, The
It's
Dirt.
Just an audiobook.
Yes. That's what I was going to say, is if you've seen The Dirt, it's going to... Some similar imagery is going to happen, I think. So, So we're going to get into the story here. First off, before there was ever a Great White, we got to go all the way back to the very beginning. The inception of the group. So, without further ado, we have this guy named Mark Kindle. Mark Kindle, he'd been playing guitar since he was 9, and and he came from a background of musicians. His father played trumpet. His mother was a jazz singer. And even his grandfather was a pianist way back in the day. I think he was like a vaudevillian pianist.
That's awesome.
So that sounds like some guy who travels around on a fucking train in like the 1800s.
He sells like potions.
Yeah, he's got snake oil on the top of his piano as he's just one of those, you know. He had two interests as a kid. His music and baseball. He was also a solid pitcher, but he suffered a shoulder injury from all these fastballs he was throwing. That's literally what it is. He had all these fastballs that so much, I guess, that just ripped his shoulder to shreds. So after that, he dove more into music. And now we're going to switch to another person. So we have Jack Russell now. So Mark Kendall, Jack Russell. Jack Russell was another kid growing up around the same time in the Los Angeles area. From the age of 6, Jack would say he wanted to be an archaeologist. Interesting career choice for a kid, but I guess they like dig up dinosaurs, right?
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to be, so watch your fucking mouth.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Jesus. Well, he wanted to be an archaeologist, but tragically, he heard the Beatles. So after he got one of their records for his birthday, he fell head over heels in love with them, as many did, primarily teenage girls in the 60s, but he also fell for them.
Yeah.
And he fell specifically for the song Help. And he also had this huge fascination with Ringo Starr, which is an interesting Beatle to become obsessed with.
Yeah, if you had to pick one.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Well, I know this much. He really enjoyed his rock star lifestyle and
Ringo?
his look.
Oh, God.
Not his drumming skills.
Yeah.
Didn't have much to say about his drumming skills, but
his drumming skills are just like his look.
I know. Well, what is...
I'm not saying anything.
Weird? Peculiar?
Yeah, British.
Yeah,
respectfully.
He does drum very Britishly, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So Jack, he quickly switched his dream to be a rock star instead of an archaeologist. So he's delving into the world of music. He's leaving behind that profitable career, that's safer, the safety net. He's throwing it out. But it's okay because he's 6. But by the time he's 11, he's still chasing this dream. He's starting to play in bands, which is pretty young for bands. He became friends with this guy named Audie Desbrow. Desbrow. I don't really know.
Eyebrow.
Audie Desbrow. But remember the name Audie. He'll come up later. He's a drummer. And Jack started playing in his band. And they would play covers. They would do all the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, yada, yada, yada. The thing about Jack is that he was able to pretty much emulate anybody's vocal style and sound. So he was really good for a cover band. But
that's awesome.
He eventually quit Audie's band because he didn't want to play covers. He wanted to do originals. And Audie didn't. He wanted to keep it a cover band. So now Jack's 17. He's got no band. And he's pretty embedded already into the world of cocaine. Yeah,
wow.
So
Jesus Christ.
We're going to go back to our buddy Mark Kendall. He's 17 years old now as well. He's living in El Monte, California. And he crosses paths with Jack in 1977 or 78. Mark was on the hunt. Sorry. My throat. Okay. Mark was on the hunt for a vocalist for his band at the time. Okay. This is the band name. ZZYZX.
Huh. It's like Rush.
Yeah. What was theirs? XYYZZ.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Something like that.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time.
ZZX. I don't know. Okay. ZZYZX. That's the band that Mark is currently a part of. And he's looking for a vocalist, right? So Jack Russell, he lived nearby in Whittier. They're both pretty much in the LA proper area. And they shared a similar passion in music. Jack was mostly inspired by people like Steven Tyler, Robert Plant, I guess Ringo Starr as well. as we mentioned earlier. I don't know if he still shared that fascination. So the two, Mark and Jack, they meet up and they decide to start writing together at Jack's parents' house. And eventually they bring on a drummer. His name is Tony Richards, and a bassist named Randy Knapp.
Nice. Those are both great names.
Yeah. Tony Richards is pretty nice.
Yeah, that's a good rock star name.
There's going to be a lot of revolving cast members. I feel like we should rate all their names.
No, he's number one.
Yeah, so far, Tony Richards.
So far. Number one.
Okay, cool. Randy was gone within a few weeks, so good job on choosing Tony there. They did the usual bassist rotation for a while. You know, the bassist is kind of a cliche as the hardest person to keep the band, I feel like.
To keep. Drummer's the hardest to find. Once you get a good one, you got it. But a bassist...
Drummers will be in like 19 different bands.
Yeah, they're fine.
They don't give a fuck. They'll just drum their hearts out.
Well, they're not even playing the right part, but no one can tell. It just sounds good.
Nope. So their name, it started out as Livewire.
Okay.
Man, of course I'm getting congested right now.
Yeah.
And then it changed to Highway. So let's do the same thing, but with band names, because it will change a few times.
So Livewire.
I
know. No, I was kidding. Sorry.
Live, they created that. What even is that?
Well, what?
LimeWire?
It was... it was like pirating. It was like a pirating website.
Oh, like Napster?
Yeah, but Napster was legal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Okay. Anyway, Livewire.
Sorry.
Then it changed to Highway. How are we feeling?
Highway, it just reminds me of Deep Purple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Highway is a pretty basic name. It's going to be hard to not be the only people rocking that one.
It was a long time ago, though.
That's
I
true.
think highways were like barely invented at that point.
They're pretty cool. Livewire to me sounds like a 90s like Audio Slave kind of band.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well,
highways, I mean, dirt, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, after some time, Mark was on his way to work one morning. He's going to work. For a job, he paints road signs for a living. This all sounds terrible.
Highway.
Yeah, maybe that's where they got it.
He's like, guys,
I see a lot of roads.
An idea.
I was out there painting a sign.
I looked down.
I was looking out at the concrete. It's like, man, this is it.
Uh-huh.
So he was grabbing some cigarettes, as I'm sure everyone had to back
all
then.
17-year-olds do.
Yep, as you got to back in the 80s. He noticed a newspaper at the checkout stand, and there was a headline that said, Jack Russell, Whittierite, shoots live-in maid.
Whoa.
Okay?
What?
Yeah, so Mark, he walks over to a payphone. He calls Jack's mom, and he asks her if it's the same Jack and if he did it. Jack's mom says it was Jack, and he did shoot the maid. Mark had a sort of a reflective moment, sort of a catharsis, I guess. Worried about who he was hanging out with. People that shoot maids. So, anyway, what happened with Jack was he was trying to score some coke. As I mentioned, he's a cokehead.
Damn.
At the ripe age of 17. And he had heard an easy way to get it was by robbing dealers at gunpoint. So, great strategy. He and some friends, him and some friends got some ski masks, and they went to try this out. Okay. So apparently, on their second attempt, Jack had smoked some PCP beforehand and blacked out. Jack says he doesn't remember anything, but at some point, he broke into a house, and a maid was there and started screaming at him. So Jack is screaming, "I'm here for coke!" And she runs to the fridge. She looks in it and screams back, "We don't have any coke!" Talking about the soda.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he shouts back, "I'm talking about drugs, bitch!" And so she panics, of course.
Yeah.
She runs into a bedroom. Jack shoots through the bedroom door. And the bullet, this is very lucky for all involved, it hits this like religious medallion that she's wearing around her neck.
He saves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bounces off her. I think it ricochets into her shoulder, worst case. But anyway, she's fine. You know, probably not mentally, but she's alive. Jack is sentenced to 8 years in prison. So right away, vocalist, 8 years in prison. So Mark, he had to start from scratch.
Singing the blues.
Yeah, dude. That'll make you sing the blues for sure. I would probably take a step back from music if that happened.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe it's not in the cards for me if this is going to happen right before we even start playing shows. Anyway, starting from scratch. So Mark starts putting out ads in the paper. He's looking for other musicians. He found a drummer, Tony Montana. Was the other guy named Tony?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Yeah, what? Tony Richards.
Yeah. Okay.
So he found another drummer, also by the name of Tony Montana.
Okay, but that's better.
Yeah, that guy.
It's like way better.
Why are the drummers' names low-key bussing? I mean, come on.
Man, if I could put out an ad for a drummer, first of all, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Then to have a guy named Tony Montana.
Yeah, that's
pick up the payphone.
Excellent name.
And call me and say, "You got a deal."
Hey, this is Tony Montana speaking.
I'd say,
I'm in.
Stop calling me.
Let me get my stick bag. This dude lays pipe for sure. Tony Montana. And wait, the bassist that he found, also a pretty cool name, Don Costa.
Yeah.
Don Costa. Costa. I'm going to say Don Costa.
Costa sounds right.
Yeah.
I feel like he's that secret fifth Beatle.
Yeah.
So it's like a secret member of Steely Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
It's a sick name.
And they, these two badasses and Mark's got to change his fucking name at this point. They all met up and they jammed. And apparently the chemistry was there right away. But they were having an issue finding a singer. That was not so easy. And by the way, Don Costa, the bassist, he had a weird stage trick that I think is worth mentioning. He would nail a cheese grater to the backside of his bass. Okay? He would scrape his knuckles on it.
No.
Until he starts bleeding everywhere.
Like immediately?
Yeah. And
what the fuck?
He actually I think he got kicked out of some bands for this trick. Not because it was gross, but because he would just stop playing. He would stop playing for the whole fucking song and just grind his knuckles on a cheese grater.
What?
Because he can't play while he's doing that, obviously.
Well, yeah.
And everyone's just pissed off. I mean, he's over there just bleeding now.
It doesn't
really add up why he did that, but that's something he's remembered by. So
it sounds like he would shoot a maid.
he might go on to shoot a maid. We'll talk about it.
If I saw that, if I said, I need a bassist, had a few guys come over, I would stop playing music immediately.
Yeah.
I would sell all my equipment.
Yeah, definitely. What the fuck? If I'm Mark, I'm freaking out right now. I've got an ex-singer who just shot a maid, and then this new guy, Don Costa, yeah, he's good, but he's grinding his knuckles on a cheese grater.
Occasionally self-mutilates.
Yeah, like, what the fuck is going on here? Okay, anyway. They tried out a guy named Butch. Okay, now they're looking for vocalists. So they got a guy named Butch. I guess he didn't work. Then they brought in a guy named John Bush. That sounds like a bean company. We got a girl named Lisa Baker. And this was a pretty good prospect here.
That sounds like borderline familiar.
Yeah, I feel like maybe she
did something else.
I don't know. Lisa Baker was the name. She changed their sound entirely when she came into the mix. Plus, her father worked in TV, and he was an overseer for some big-time industry showcases. And so that was good. They got the nepotism. They got it all. But right when things were falling into place, Lisa gets poached by George Lynch, who was in a band called Exciter. So she didn't work out. So they went with Butch, the first guy. They went back with him because they noticed a music scene was rapidly forming in L.A., and Mark had recently gone to see a band. He paid $1 to go to somebody's backyard and see this band play.
Nice.
Turns out the band was Van Halen, and he heard they just got signed to Warner Bros. So Mark's feeling a sense of urgency now. He's inspired to start making some music. So they grab Butch and like, he's good enough, and we'll start playing out as much as we can with Butch as the singer.
That's some good music though.
Yeah.
If you're in a backyard, and later on, now we know it's Van Halen, but you see Van Halen and there's no one, and you say, "Fuck." Like, we have to start,
Yeah, dude, that would...
getting our music together.
Yeah, I would figure it out. If I see some dude tapping, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Tapping on the guitar, the...
He used to...
And they're like, all right, this next one's called Jump.
Yeah, no, right.
Fuck.
But Van Halen, he used to turn around because it was a secret for a while. He would, like, hide it.
Really?
Yeah. It was like, he didn't want people to know what he was doing. And then, I don't know if people found out or what, but...
Allegedly, some people were doing it before him when I was getting research for this.
On the lute in the 16th century, there was there's like a Eruption, it was a ripoff.
Eruption he stole that. It's like how Tarantino steals everything from Japan, and yeah. Well, anyway,
yeah.
Back on track. They're with Butch now.
Nice.
Okay, he's the singer. They're doing this for a while. They're playing out. And Mark finds out that Jack Russell, maid shooter, cocaine doer, he's been released from prison on a furlough into a halfway house.
Nice.
So, yeah.
He's chilling.
He's doing fine. So, apparently there were some issues during Jack's trial, and that resulted in him getting released after only serving 11 months of 8 years. So, that's pretty damn good for Jack. So, he stops in. I guess they're still interested in him, and they jam, and the guys, they really dig his voice. And they also, here's the important part, they think that they're going to get more girls with him as the singer. So, naturally, everyone was a little suspicious of Jack, who just got out of prison for shooting somebody. But here's some direct quotes from the guys and how they were justifying it. So, quote, "He told me he was not the kind of person that would shoot someone. He was just kind of super high on this PCP. He said he blacked out, didn't even know what he was doing." And the quote goes on. This is Mark, by the way. Quote, "I didn't know anybody who'd shot anyone, let alone been in a band with someone who had. In fact, I didn't even know anyone who knew anyone who'd shot somebody. But he did seem like he'd change." So Mark's really just trying to explain this away.
He's like, I like this guy's voice.
I need to get laid.
Yeah.
I need head. I need to be a rock star. That's fine. I don't care that he shot someone.
That's crazy.
We're going to be okay. So the band moves on. They ditch Butch. They get Jack as their vocalist. And they're playing a show 6 days later under a new name, Dante Fox. How are we feeling about this name?
I don't know. I feel like it's like I hit generate on a band name generator.com.
It's a little random, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean?
Probably meant something to them. Maybe it probably didn't actually.
Maybe cocaine.
Yeah.
Maybe cocaine. Someone had Dante's Inferno.
That's what I thought of
somewhere.
Immediately.
Yeah, me too. And they were like, fuck yeah.
Now, what is Fox?
I don't know. Just maybe some 80s stuff, like Fox.
Oh.
Like it's like you picture it in an
Fox
80s.
News.
80s. Yeah. I picture in like an 80s album art fashion. You see like a giant flaming fox.
Yeah.
In the pits of hell. I don't know.
It was a different time.
It's a different time. But I don't like the name either. So.
No.
Bad name. But this is what they're playing under for a while. So now, Jack's out of prison. Some would say he dodged a major bullet, just like the maid. Sorry. All right. Jack was focused now. And he's ready. He's ready to accept his rock and roll destiny. And I feel like destiny is a recurring theme with this band. They keep saying this word destiny. So here's a quote from Jack himself. "I kept looking at my watch thinking, when's this going to happen?" I guess he's talking about being a rock star.
Yeah, like making it.
Yeah. "I wasn't real surprised when it did.
Oh.
I had to work at it, of course. I wasn't going to sit in my garage and hum, and some guy's going to drive past in a Cadillac and go, who's that? Who's got that marvelous voice? I didn't have illusions, but I always found the path to be reasonably easy. Even though there were hard times, I knew I just had to hold the course.
Illusions.
Illusions.
Yeah.
So Dante Fox, they're out gigging all around LA. And then this is where a big figure comes into the story. This guy named Alan Nevin. He was a man employed by Green World, which was a music distributor. And Alan, most notably, had helped Motley Crue along in their distribution by helping sell their debut record. So Alan, he became friends with this guy named Don Dokken.
Okay.
Dokken.
That sounds cooler than it's spelled, but damn.
Yeah. Well, who came to Alan in search of distribution services as well. I think he has a band called Dokken, Dokken. It's like his last name. I don't know if it's the same band, but Don came along one time and was needing distribution from Alan, and they became good friends, and they eventually became roommates. And it was Don Dokken who originally suggested Alan go see a little band called Dante Fox. So Alan did just that. He went, he tried them out, and he hated them. He walked out on them mid-set. Dokken insisted he try them out again, and Alan did. And then he hated him just as much as again. So he's pretty loyal.
Doesn't sound good. Yeah.
He must really like this Don guy, because he's keeping it going. If I wouldn't do this.
For me?
Well, I don't know.
Please.
But, please.
Please.
But if I went, someone suggested a band that was like local, and I went, and they absolutely sucked.
Yeah, I probably
I
wouldn't.
don't know if I'd go again.
Although I have been to different shows where just somehow someone is playing who I've seen before, and they suck.
Yeah.
And they sucked again.
But
I won't name it.
Did they suck a third time?
They sucked a third time. They kept
So
sucking.
they
They
suck.
haven't stopped,
Well,
and they're
here's the
still making
thing.
music.
Because somehow Alan went on a third try. He went to see Dante Fox. They're playing at the Troubadour.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty uptown, right? And they did an encore.
Okay.
I guess he hated the whole thing until the encore. So he's about to walk out angry again, but luckily he didn't, because they did this encore, and I think it's called No Doctor or something, and Mark starts going crazy on the guitar. I guess Jack's wailing, and it just created this really electric scene. And Alan was moved so much by this that he went up after the set and he asked for tapes from them.
Nice.
So Alan quickly changed his opinion on the band, and he actually ended up making them the second band that he signed to his new record label, Agin, which is it's like his initials AGN, but like spelled out phonetically. So
Oh, that's cool.
AEGEAN, Asian.
So he's Dokken. Where does Motley Crue? You said someone signed Motley Crue. That's
Alan,
a buddy of Dawkins, right?
Yeah, Alan Nevin. He's very important.
Yeah.
You want to remember his name.
Okay.
Don is less. Don was his roommate.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah,
Makes more sense.
Don.
So he's trying to get his own Motley Crue.
Yeah, pretty much. Because Alan, at this point, he works for Green World, which is a music distributor. So he's not like on his own.
Yeah.
He's just helping people sell records, pretty much. He's not managing anyone like that. He helped with Motley Crue's debut release, and that was like his biggest accolade at that time, I guess.
Which was pretty big at the time.
It was big.
In
well,
their
I guess
scene,
this was
they were,
their first album, so I'm not sure how big they were.
They got. I'm not a Motley Crue expert, but I'm pretty sure in the locals, like in California, when that first record came out, when they were playing shows, a lot of people would show up, and people were, especially ladies, were very into it, and they would. I don't know if they'd sell out a whole theater, but it would fill up, and people were going up.
Right.
They were on the up part of the roller coaster.
They were immediately hip.
They were hip, yeah. People liked them. So you could tell, I think, early on, especially him, who's like related, adjacent to Motley Crue. He could see, he's like, this type of music is about to blow up, is blowing up, and Motley Crue's about to get big. I need my own.
That's good. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
You might be trying to replicate do his own thing. I think he's definitely a self-made kind of guy.
Yeah, entrepreneur.
Yeah, he's trying to get his own thing going
He
constantly.
invested in NFTs.
Yes,
Yeah.
he would.
He would.
You know, if he... Maybe he does. I don't know.
Maybe he
I'm not
does.
sure how
probably
hip he
does.
is. Yeah. He's
still-
hip back then. Let's
he's
see if he's
hustling.
hip now. But so in a very old school fashion, this is very 80s to me. And, you know, just that kind of era of music. The band went up to Alan. They asked Alan to be their manager. And Alan immediately refused because he was like, that's a huge conflict of interest. I can't
Yeah.
be your manager and your record label. And the band simply responded with, you'll learn. You'll learn.
Honestly,
Pretty badass, right?
it's an appeal.
I would see that in the dirt. So, for sure. You'll learn, bro. Okay.
And then the guy's like, yeah, I will.
I will.
And then it cuts to party.
And or they like fist bump. And they flex.
Fist bumping was invented in 2011.
Fuck. Okay, never mind. So they went on their way. Alan became their manager. So he's both, I guess. So
Oh, he did.
yeah. So
Oh.
Alan is managing Great White.
Or Dante's Fox?
Sorry, Dante Fox.
Dante Fox.
Okay. Well, they're not Dante Fox for long
Okay.
because pretty soon after he signs them to his label and he's managing them, they end up in an office. They're discussing their future partnership with Alan. And Alan, pretty much right away, he brings up the name and he didn't like it.
Good.
Had to go. I agree. Great
Yeah.
call. So the guys protested because they were afraid of losing their following. But Alan told them to not be bothered about such a small group of people. And so they switched gears.
He said, what following?
Backhanded.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
I don't think there's
Tiny-
anyone listening.
Insignificant group of people. So they switched gears and they set their focus on creating a new name. And as the boys are probably scrunching their eyes, like, oh, what's a good name, bro? Alan was like, I already got one. Alan's British, by the way. So he's like, I've already got one. And he spit out the name. Great White.
Great
He just watched Jaws. No, but actually, the story behind it is Alan had the name archived in his mind from the night he saw Dante Fox. They were playing at the Troubadour, the night that the encore, all that. He fell in love with them. The band was driving away. Mark poked his head out the window, and some kid said, "There goes Great White." So
That's pretty cool.
that is cool.
That
And the
origin
reason
story.
he's called Great White is because Mark had a very, very signature look. He had this big, long, naturally white blonde hair. He wore a white jumpsuit, white Capezio shoes, and he played a white Fender Strat. So he's all white.
I don't know.
What do you not know?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't go by Great White? Or you
No, I
wouldn't
just
dress
wouldn't
like that?
do any of that personally.
Gross.
But then the 90s and everybody started dressing all black, so I think it was a different.
Yeah,
You know.
I guess in the 80s it could
It's
have been
cool.
cool. But I don't know.
But that encore must have been
Must have been
actually
something.
amazing.
I know. It must have been electric.
Because if I saw someone, I can think of people, artists, and groups that I've seen multiple times, and I don't hate them, but I just don't. I don't get down with it. You know, I know some people maybe like it.
Yeah.
The third time, and I still don't like it, and I'm hanging out, waiting for the show to be over because we're gonna go do something after. Some people like it; they're hanging out, and then they played an encore, one song, and then I became their manager. Like that's how. It must have been incredible.
It had to have been. I wish I was there, honestly. It must have been crazy. So, soon into their partnership, the newly named Great White, they put out a 5-song EP titled Out of the Night, which was well received considering Alan's label was just now starting up, and they ended up actually selling 8,000 copies in under 3 months.
That's pretty good.
Pretty damn
That's
respectable.
nice, yeah.
Yeah. And Great White was quickly becoming more than just a club band. They were becoming a band which could headline venues like Magic Mountain, and they started drawing in thousands instead of dozens or hundreds.
That's awesome.
They gained the attention of major labels At one point, meeting with one every day for a week and a half. The band settled on signing with EMI, which was a massive label at the time. And EMI helped the band record and release their self-titled debut album early in 1984. So Great White hit the road, and they hit it hard. They were perpetually touring. Some of the tours they went on, they toured the UK, supporting Whitesnake's Slide It In tour. They toured with Kiss for their Lick It Up tour.
Nice.
Slide It In and Lick It Up. They do.
Nice.
Gross. It's so 80s.
They,
Slide it in,
dude.
Lick it up.
They were, man, they were going crazy in the 80s.
Yeah. And by the way, this whole time, we're not really going to touch on it too much because we have so much to get through, but just picture the most 80s shit you can imagine. People fighting, people.
Yeah, bar fights.
Fucking.
Drinking.
Drugs. Sniffing, huffing. Shooting.
Sniffing.
Yeah. All of it. They're doing all of it to the maximum. Okay? So
yeah. It's like the dirt.
These aren't some, little virgin boys.
No.
These are rock stars.
They killed a maid. No, they didn't kill her.
They tried to kill a maid.
Tried to kill a maid.
Yeah. So they're going hard. And by the way, they're also, I didn't finish the touring. They're touring the US and Canada, opening for Judas Priest.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's fucking cool.
It's actually sick.
Yeah, during their Defenders of the Faith tour. So these guys, wow. I don't know how we missed them, but they were doing big shit. Yeah. They're, you don't hear about them much these days. So here's what I have to say about all this. I think when things seem to move rapidly, when the industry thinks they have a new sensation on the line, and just as quickly as Great White was blowing up and were signed to a multinational label, the band already started taking some blows. So, you see this today as well.
Yeah, somebody blows up overnight and then people hate them.
And it's the whole 15 minutes of fame, one hit
trip,
wonder.
But it's like a fucking punch in the face.
Yeah.
Because when you come up fast, you're not acclimated to anything.
No, you have no idea, especially these guys.
Yeah.
They're probably spending so much money. So anyway, we didn't have a big radio song. That's what Mark Kendall said. He goes on to say, Stick It was the mild hit with our fan base, but when you're getting played on MTV at 4:30 in the morning, it's hard to have a hit. We sold 100,000 records or something, but it wasn't what they were expecting. So as a result, EMI dropped Great White, and the band had to go shopping for another label. Luckily, they had already had meetings with several other heavy hitters. As I mentioned, for a week and a half straight, they just kept meeting big-ass label after big-ass label.
It's really cool.
It is awesome. I mean, that would really inflate your ego, probably, if you're
and
these
you're doing
guys.
coke.
Yeah, you're coked up. Everybody wants you. But they go back to those labels. Nobody's interested.
Well, they all communicate, I feel like, at least on some level.
Yeah.
They know what's going on.
Alan goes into it saying, I was utterly naive. I thought I'd have 7 companies interested in taking a look at the situation, but what I actually had were 7 pissed off bridesmaids who said that they weren't good enough for us the first time around. The record wasn't good, and the relationship with EMI was a disaster.
That,
Huh?
No, I'm just sorry. That happens.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ego in the industry, and it's not like I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like you just know. Anyone could say that. Like, I mean, if you turn someone down and they're offering like a great deal,
yeah,
and then you strike out with somebody else, you come back. It is like a it's just like a bridesmaid. I don't know what he's saying, but like,
yeah. So they were no longer interested, all of them, which big punch in the gut.
Yeah, it's 6.
Yeah, that's horrible. So Alan, he goes on to say, in the wake of that, I had to evaluate my involvement. I realized there would have to be some serious reinvention. We had to go back to the beginning, and that was Mark Kendall playing No Doctor. So that's the encore he witnessed.
Yeah.
So let's build on something with an English blues rock sentiment. It's got to have a fundamental integrity and be umbilically connected to the strongest aspects of the talent. He loves the word umbilically, by the way. That's like his big word of choice.
Does not come back up.
Umbilically.
Better not.
Yeah.
So they're just going to take an awesome they're just going to try and put an awesome single out.
Yeah.
And like focus. Yeah. That's awesome.
They're going to try to reinvent their sound.
I mean, it's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta, I don't think they have any other options at this point.
Yeah.
Besides cutting their losses. But so the band obviously going through a trough here, trying to keep the band just from dissolving during this kind of lull of any activity, any income. And Alan, he works some magic. He's got a lot of connections by this point. He was able to get enough backing and money to get the band to the point where they could make another album, and that album was called Shot in the Dark. And somehow, some way, Alan was able to get the band signed to another label, and it was a bigger label. It was Capitol Records.
What?
And funny enough, that's the parent company of EMI, which was their previous label.
Huh.
So that astonished the band. Pretty good there. But they saw it as a second chance.
Yeah, that's some good news.
Yeah. And
That's
it's another, it further proves that what they were doing was their destiny. So there's destiny again.
There it is.
Literally, the parent company took us in.
Yeah,
but no one else would.
They rebranded after whatever horrible thing is going to happen later on in their career to Destiny's Child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's these men.
Yes, Destiny's Child. Anyway, Capitol Records, they reissue Shot in the Dark, that album they just made. And also, when the album was made, 2 members joined. So one of Jack's oldest bandmates, you remember his name? Audie?
Yeah.
Yeah, drummer.
Nice.
So he's the new drummer, Audie Desbro.
So they got rid of the other guy?
Yeah, I guess. And they bring on Michael Lardy. Michael Lardy.
Yeah, that's a run-on.
Yeah.
Michael Lardy.
Michael Lardy. Yeah, you're like, what did you just say? Is that like a fancy name or 2 really ordinary names? Turns out it's 2 really ordinary names.
Yeah, Lardy.
Yeah, Lard. He was a session player. He actually played on the album Shot in the Dark. He joined the band afterwards full time as a keyboardist and a guitarist. I think he's also an engineer / producer.
That's pretty cool
for them. Yeah, so he can do it all kind of guy. Alan begins to really involve himself in the writing process for their newest album, Once Bitten. Who says this? Let's see. Mark. He's got a little quote right here. He said he had a vision. He was right most of the time. They're talking about Alan.
Yeah.
The only negative side for me a little bit was the intimidation. I started to feel a little bit like I was writing for his brain and not mine. It kind of narrows your range, but at the same time, he was right most of the time. I mean, what do I know? Alan liked straight-ahead rock and roll blues songs that would stand the test of time. He wanted the best for us, and he had a lot of input. He picked up on the vibe, on something that was in us. That's exactly what it was. It was easy for him to stand outside of our painting and figure it out. And we were all just inside going, okay, now what? So in 1987, Once Bitten was released. And at this point, Alan is now managing both Great White and Guns N' Roses.
Oh, my God.
Yep. Alan's killing it. Alan's the breadwinner.
He is a self-made man.
He is.
He maybe wouldn't invest in NFTs.
He might not. Because he might have the foresight.
Yeah.
And, well, he opened a company. And it was the Stravinsky Bros. I guess that's what he was managing under. And Once Bitten actually did really well. Sort of a comeback for Great White here. Actually, it might just be their magnum opus kind of era because it's doing way better than their other stuff. It was certified platinum in 1988. And yeah, things are going well again.
That's
and
awesome.
you'd think Jack Russell and Mark Kendall, they're the typical rock and rollers who have all this unbridled confidence, but apparently they were both in their own heads a lot. And they were both very insecure people, and drugs were the main way they got through these issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those.
Sounds right.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I feel like, I don't know, when you come up that fast and then you write a pretty good record, you sell 100,000 copies, and then you write a platinum record,
Yeah.
you know, you have some issues, and then you write a platinum one. But with the help of a engineer, keyboard, guitar, session player,
Yeah.
who you kind of feel like the spotlight maybe is on them,
Mm-hmm.
and it was all like your shit to begin with.
Yeah.
I feel like, and you're on drugs, you're gonna get insecure.
Yeah.
And I think that can, being insecure can do a lot to a
Definitely.
person.
And can definitely affect the overall chemistry of a band.
Yeah.
For sure. So they're pushing on through the 80s. They're actually getting bigger and bigger. They made another album as a follow-up to Once Bitten, and it was named Twice Shy. That was released
That's
in
cool.
1989. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it included their biggest hit, Twice Shy. It was called Once Bitten, Twice Shy. So
Nice. Okay.
there you go. The
Yeah.
song was actually a cover of an Ian Hunter song, and Great White finally achieved a single which hit gold certification with this song.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Good for them. Very good. And in July 1889, a century before, in July 1989, Twice Shy hit platinum. In September, it hit double platinum.
Nice.
And then Twice Shy earned a Grammy nomination for Best Hard Rock Performance. See what I mean? Like, big time shit right
It's
here.
going good.
And we don't know anything about him.
Not really.
So this boom sent Great White into a flurry of tours, playing stadiums and arenas. So now they're playing just the biggest of venues. You know?
Yeah.
And they're playing with the biggest of people at the time. They're playing with Bon Jovi. They're playing with Alice Cooper, Rat, and Kix. They performed their song House of Broken Love at the American Music Awards in January 1990.
Well, that's awesome.
And in March of 1990, just a few months later, they set out for their first tour in Japan.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's
That's
fucking
very cool.
awesome.
I bet they had fun.
Oh, yeah.
No drugs.
They love American music over there.
They do.
Yep.
No drugs.
No drugs. Sober living. So the band then made 2 more records for Capitol Records, Hooked and Psycho City. Hooked reached a certified gold status, and for the album Hooked, Great White toured as an opener for Scorpions.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, who wrote Wind of Change, which is the biggest song ever,
Dude,
apparently, if you're not American.
Scorpions are awesome.
Yeah, you like Scorpions?
I did not see them. I almost saw them,
Yeah.
but I wanted to go really bad. I made a point to say that to my parents.
Yeah.
And so did my friends. And a few of my friends got pulled out of their last period in middle school
Damn.
to go and see them. And
Just to see Scorpions
I stayed in whatever
You were-
history class.
in class.
Yeah, but it was down the road. It was it was at like a local little festival.
Damn, dude. That's tragic.
To me, it was. I was listening to Guns N' Roses and stuff like that when I was that age.
Yeah, you would have loved that.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
My parents would have hated it, so I
I'm
get
sorry.
it. Well, I'm okay now.
It sucks.
I know.
Well, so they're on this tour with Scorpions. They're going through Japan. They're now on their second tour of Japan, and it's here that Mark suffers a hernia, a hiatal hernia, a hiatal hernia. Do you know how to say that?
I gotta see it. I don't know.
Hiatal. I don't know. A hernia. So
I don't know.
yeah, I don't know either. But we're not
I bet
doctors.
hiatus.
Hiatal.
Right?
Hiatal hernia.
Hiatal.
Hiatal hernia. All right. Jesus Christ. So he's suffering in pain, or making fun of him.
That's
for it.
awful.
Yeah, he's in the hospital for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Sounds terrible. And they had Al Petrelli sub in for him during the remaining tour dates. And that guy's a really big guitarist, it seems. He was working with Trans-Siberian Orchestra
Whoa.
and
That's
Alice
awesome.
Cooper and Megadeth.
Oh, that's
Not a
awesome.
small name on there. man.
No, that's really cool.
Like the smallest name is probably Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and they're huge.
Yeah.
So Psycho City, their other album, that also had a big tour for its release, and the band toured alongside Kiss across the U.S.
Nice. It is very big.
Yeah, that's big. Great stuff right here. Good for them. So Jack, he buys a boat. He wants to live on a boat.
That's cool.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fun. honestly. The others lived in apartments, which Alan bought once their big royalty checks started coming in.
Nice.
He bought all the band members a bunch of apartments all in the same complex to keep them together. And then Jack goes off on his own and gets a boat. So Jack says he's having one of these nights on his boat. And he says, there was a night when I was sitting in the back of my boat. It was a full moon. I was looking into the salon, which is the main room of the boat. Is it?
I couldn't tell you.
I don't know.
I don't have a boat.
Yeah, me neither. And on the right-hand side of the dash was my platinum album for Once Bitten. And on the left side was the gold record. And I sat back and I was drinking a Budweiser and listening to Cinderella. And I went,
interesting.
Wow, dude, you really pulled it off. But I always lived for the day. Enjoy yourself. You don't know how long you're going to be here. 100 miles per hour. That's the way I've lived my life. But the wall hurts when you hit them.
Damn. That's an awesome moment.
That is an awesome
Just as a person.
Yeah. That would be like the best.
You're sitting on your boat.
So satisfying.
Under the moon.
Yeah.
And for some reason, you have your
Budweiser.
You had a Budweiser, and you for some reason you had a Budweiser.
I'd maybe go up a little.
Yeah.
On the price range, maybe a top shelf something or other.
But you have your platinum and gold records.
Yeah.
Just laying in the living room.
Yeah. On your boat.
I feel like there's some ego there, but I think it's I think it's funny. It's
like
understated.
I am happy for him, that he had to have that moment.
I mean, it's cool.
It is cool. Very cool. And so during this high point of success, it's comparable to some of the world's most recognized names, Like they're living this lavish lifestyle.
Hanging out with Kiss and
they're
Megadeth.
They're all friends. Like they're literally in it. And
I didn't think at the beginning of this that they got that big. I really hadn't heard about them.
I know. I mean, it surprised me when I was reading about them because I had no idea. But Jack Russell, he's experiencing this unfortunate, and we've seen this a lot, it's a cliche of a rock star's tendency to self-destruct. One day, Alan, he's got some nice father and son time carved out. He's going to take his kid to Disneyland and all that.
He had a kid in the middle of all this.
Yep,
Nice.
Somehow. Alan's quite a bit older, I think.
Alan. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, the manager.
That makes sense.
Before lunch, though, Alan, he gets a call from Audie, the drummer. He's at the Phoenix airport, Audie is. And Audie tells Alan, you need to get out here, or you need to get out there and pick Jack up before he gets arrested. And apparently Audie and Jack had just gotten thrown off of a plane for being disorderly. They're all drunk and fucked up. You can imagine.
You cannot be drunk on a plane.
No.
Even if you're chilling.
And this is pre 9/11. So
that's true.
They must be real bad.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. Like Wolf of Wall Street.
When did they ban smoking on planes?
I don't know.
Because they had a non-smoking section of the plane, which I think is funny.
That's hilarious.
It's a tube. But,
it's going to get to you.
Yeah.
Just give it some time. So, they got thrown off the airplane, Jack and Audie. So Alan calls a buddy in Phoenix. His name is Ray Brown. He tells him to go pick Jack up from the airport, and he tells him that he'll be in a bar. So look in a bar, you'll find Jack. He's a fucking
he's going to keep drinking. That's crazy.
He's drinking Budweisers. He's not going anywhere.
At a bar in the airport.
Yep. Yeah. So.
Well, they did. They didn't drag him out. That is like pre 9/11.
Yeah. So I guess he didn't get thrown out. They were just like, get off the plane.
But you can hang out.
You can hang out. You can have a beer.
Because there's no security or something.
Go drink it out.
Yeah.
Go drink it out of your system. Come on, Jack. Anyway, so I guess he was in an airport bar because he was found and brought back to Ray Brown's house. So Alan, he goes to Phoenix. This is a fucking horrible day for Alan. You're expecting to go to Disneyland with your kid, get some quality time. You got to drive to or fly.
Man, that sucks.
Phoenix and take care of this grown-ass man's problems. And he heads to Ray's house. Ray answers the door, and immediately it's clear that Ray is on something because his eyes are huge. And it's a great start. Alan goes in. He heads out back to a pool, and he finds Jack, and he's talking to a cactus. So we know what's going on here.
Like drunk or on something?
He's on something. He's talking to a cactus.
What, man?
You been there?
No. I haven't been that drunk, but I feel like some people have.
I've been so drunk I thought I could make a dog talk.
Yeah, I've never. But I get it.
Dog didn't talk.
I've been there.
Yeah.
It's just
it
like,
was a moment of weakness.
please talk.
I was like, I know you can.
Tell me you love me.
I know you can. Okay, so Alan approaches Jack, who's talking to a cactus. He interrupts that conversation. He greets him. Jack turns around, greets Alan with a big drug-induced smile, just a big old grin, and offers Alan some shrooms.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So, Jack's antics, they were not looked upon favorably by the industry or by Alan. To me, that story doesn't seem too crazy. I'm guessing there's a lot of other stories.
Just not talked about.
Yeah, or just I didn't particularly look for them. I was more looking for the timeline of events here.
I can't imagine anyone would care too much.
Yeah.
It's just when it gets in the way of your business.
Yeah.
And things like that. So
I think it's expected, especially at this point, from a lot of rock stars. So whatever he was doing must have been pretty bad and impeding the business side of things.
Over the top.
Because they were getting pissed off with him. So
yeah.
I'm guessing he didn't show up to shit, didn't show up to sessions, didn't show up to shows, yada, 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 that kind of thing. So Capitol Records, they went through a change in management, and the new president, by the name of Hale Milgram, brought in someone new to run the A&R, and his name was Simon Potts. And Simon, right off the bat, he did not like Great White. There was a time Alan scheduled a dinner with Simon. Simon showed up nearly an hour later, sitting down and immediately saying, "You've got to explain something to me. Great White. How did they sell so many records? They're not very good, are they?" So Hale Milgram, the president of Capitol Records, didn't seem to value Great White's additions to Capitol either, and did not ease Alan and the band's worries about being dropped. And it seems a big potential factor for the beginning of Great White's fall from fame was the entrance of Nirvana and that whole scene that was emerging from Seattle. You know, that new, muddy, darker sound that kind of defined the 90s.
They started wearing black.
Yeah, and they started getting edgier and, you know, less rock on.
Yeah.
More like, I am depressed. So at this point, Great White is basically just playing blues rock in their new releases. So they're pretty out of touch of the current scene. They had separated further and further from their hair metal roots, and those who were into hair metal were now largely transitioning into the new punkier sounds like Nirvana and the other bands at the time. So Great White had made the wrong call for their album on Hooked, which featured a naked girl sitting on an anchor which was sinking into the ocean. See, people in the 90s, they didn't really fuck with that anymore, that kind of imagery. I think they were more offended by it than anything. So that was a misstep on their part that got them some heat. Jack said this, I think. He said, "You were looking at a smoldering crater where our music used to be. I was looking into it going, what happened to our music?" So Psycho City, that recent album they dropped, it was a better album for them, and some true fans regard it as their best. And again, Alan, he pretty much took the helm on writing the lyrics. He's writing about, specifically, his growing alienation towards LA as a whole.
What's the record called?
Psycho City.
Psycho City.
Yeah. So at this point, like, Alan is really involved in the writing, especially the lyrics. Like, it seems like he's writing majority of the lyrics and like the vibe of the song. And so yeah, he's got a lot of involvement.
I'm sure he's tired of doing that.
Yeah. And I think the band is tired of playing his music too, maybe. So at this point, Mark and Jack, they're going in and out of rehabs.
Damn, so they're all still just doing it.
Yeah, I guess so. It's become an addiction for sure, and they're starting to struggle with it. Jack says, all of a sudden, we weren't playing arenas and we weren't making as much money, You go from 3 million down to 750,000 in sales. That's like a little tap on the shoulder, you know. So the band's next album, Sail Away, it only further sunk the band into more disappointment. It only sold 250,000 copies, and only one track, which was the title track, had any sort of decent circulation on the radio. Jack says, I wasn't happy. A change needed to come. There was one day Alan came up to me and said, you need to stop moving around so much on stage. You're getting a little old. I knew we weren't... That would just fuck you up.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Especially someone like Jack. I knew we weren't seeing eye to eye anymore. The songs I'd come up with for Sail Away, they didn't come across like I'd wanted. They were meant to be more Aerosmithy, but it was too light of an album. That's when things hit the bottom. Alan and I had an argument about something I said in a magazine, and I said, I don't need you telling me what to say in a magazine. And that was the beginning of the end. I hung up the phone, and I told everybody I wanted to fire him. So?
It just seems like it is, I can imagine it's hard. Like, you know, you do a really great job. You're on top, basically. Maybe you're not remembered as being on top, but you were on top for a while. This is a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, almost a decade of this.
Yeah, doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But eventually it seems like genres fall off. And now we see like it's a blend of everything.
Yeah.
Pop, you know, influences, electronic influences, country. It's all up at the same time.
Right.
But there's not hair metal.
Yeah. No.
It did,
especially in
a
the
few
90s.
Things. Yeah.
I feel like it was more streamlined.
And how can you transition
trend-based
from being a Motley Crue sounding band into something else without losing your original fan base? It's kind of like they should have just...
Yeah. And they already transitioned a lot from playing like hair metal, kind of Van Halen type stuff, Motley Crue type stuff, to blues rock.
Yeah.
Like that's already a big change. And they'd have to...
Which you can still retain with that. It's similar enough.
Yeah.
You can hold on to some of those people.
But I don't know if you go from that to Nirvana.
No.
No.
Grunge? Yeah. I don't... slow it down.
You gotta change...
Cut off all the
everything.
fat. Yeah.
Change how you dress, the hair, the lyrics, the art. Yeah, like literally everything would have to change. So I don't think they were gonna do that. I don't think they
weren't
committed
destined.
to that. No, the destiny is starting to not seem so anymore. So Alan says this about Jack's opinion on firing him. He said, so they did fire him.
Okay.
Full disclosure. Alan said, it was entirely unexpected and it was immediate. He had the gall to come into my home with the rest of the band where my family was and said they didn't want to work with me anymore. I couldn't throw him out of the house fast enough. I didn't know which one I wanted to grab first. I said, you fuck off out of my fucking house now. And that was it.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all that, but British. So it sounded cooler.
That actually is. For the first time in history.
Mm-hmm.
That's
For the first time, I'm siding with a British rendition of something.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, he told them how he felt. So the 90s, they remained unkind to Great White. And Alan's firing may or may not have sped up that decline. The band now owed Alan over $1 million and also had to give over some of their masters to him because he had so much involvement.
Wow.
And he's fired now, so they had to give it all to him. So all told, after Alan was gone from the band, he was with the Great White from 1982 to 1995.
Wow.
Long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. He stuck with it for a while there.
Yeah, but he was like carrying at the end of that.
Yeah,
probably
Jesus.
5 years.
Yeah, keeping the band from, dissolving and writing all their music for them, basically, it seemed. So, it's kind of sad. One album ago, Great White was playing arenas with world-renowned rock bands right there with them, touring the world. So, but for their Sail Away tour, the band was back playing the club circuit, which is quite a way to fall for a band like that. So Alan later finds out, this is brutal for poor Alan here. He finds out that his wife was having an affair with Jack for
Come on, man.
like almost the entire time that he was working with Great White. Oh, that sucks. So he says LA corrupts and Hollywood corrupts completely. I found out about it, the relationship, and it illuminated certain things. Of course, I laugh now because when I think of the creative content, how twisted is that? Look at the content of the songs and whose mouth it's coming out of. It's in the last meaningful conversation I had with my wife, she said something that rang true as the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. What you don't understand is that our marriage was a matter of convenient opportunity. That's what she told him.
Damn, dude.
That's devastating.
Yeah.
It sent me into the pit of deepest depression. When you get to a point where you think every major relationship in your life is defined by betrayal, it sinks you. Poor guy.
Dude, what the fuck?
That sucks.
That's awful. That's a mean thing to say.
That is a very mean,
He should
heartless
know
thing to say.
Probably isn't true.
Yeah. Poor
It's
Alan.
just something to say.
I'm sorry, Alan. That's brutal. So the band, they went on. They released 2 more albums. Let It Rock in 1996. Horrible name, in my opinion. Just awful, especially in 96.
Yeah.
Come on.
Let It Rock?
Jesus. And Can't Get There From Here. That's also really stupid.
It's not, it's like...
Can't Get There From Here. It's like old folk wisdom.
Yeah.
That came out in 1999.
Damn.
Yeah, they're getting up there. They also made a Led Zeppelin tribute album in 1998 titled Great Zeppelin, a tribute to Led Zeppelin.
I've never understood the tribute thing.
Me neither.
Ever.
Just don't.
Just listen to the band.
And play covers live. I don't know.
Yeah, live.
Don't make me listen to your cover of it. Jeez. But, I guess if it's done good enough.
Whatever. Stevie Ray Vaughan as a cover.
The Little Wing.
Little Wing, yeah. And I mean...
Yeah, a lot of people prefer that.
It's a different song, but it's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I haven't heard that name in a while.
I know.
Yeah. So, as you might expect, relationships are starting to get very tumultuous in these years leading up to 2000. For a while, it seems things have been brewing within the band, and on January 20th of 2000, it all kind of comes to a head. Mark releases a statement saying that he's taking a hiatus from Great White. On September 20th, 2000, a few months later, Audie, the drummer, leaves the band, or he was fired. And Audie posts this explosive rant on his website. Back when people had their own websites and blogs, Yeah, so I read through it, and basically through a lot of cursing and ranting, Audie's basically trying to convey that Mark left the band because he was smart, and Audie stayed out of blind loyalty. And then Audie went on to say he hadn't been paid for a long time, and never receiving any checks for the last few years. So years of no payment. Audie then goes on to accuse Jack and Michael Lardy of being a heartless duo who wanted to keep a firm hold on all of the publishing rights and mechanical royalties. At this point, they have a different bassist, of course. His name's Sean McNabb. He also leaves the band, but McNabb later admits that his battle with addiction was the main cause for him leaving the band.
Okay.
So at this point, the band, Great White, is only Jack Russell and Michael Lardy. Those are the only surviving original members. And so they try to stay afloat on their own until November 5th, 2001. And that is when Jack announces Great White is officially ending. And the news came not long after Jack's father died.
Oh.
So just, one of those times where life keeps hitting you.
Yeah.
And gave up. So somehow, though, Mark and Sean, they rejoined the band. And this was back in August 2001, before they called it quits in November. And they played one last round of shows as a mostly original group playing Great White's final show on December 31st, 2001 at Galaxy Theater in Santa Ana. So they're gone. That was their last show ever until it isn't, because it didn't take long for Great White to come back.
Reunion tour. Yep. Nice.
But in an odd way. This is strange. This is very unique. I haven't really seen this before. Mark and Jack, well, actually, maybe Pink Floyd, but Mark and Jack were still playing together, and together they created Jack Russell's Great White. So it's Great White, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah. Now we're going to start transitioning into one of the probably the most remembered thing about Great White nowadays. What they are really remembered for, unfortunately. So I'll go ahead and throw in this old viewer discretion advised, this and that. It's going to be pretty disturbing. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of all this tragic stuff. There's plenty of material for that if you are interested. But we're going to obviously talk about it because it's probably the biggest thing that happens with this band, since the 80s. So, 2002, Jack got Mark back on board for a Jack Russell's Great White tour. And they were going to play some classic Great White tunes, and they were also going to play some of Jack's solo stuff, which I haven't really been talking about because of time and whatever, but he's been working on solo stuff, obviously, as musicians do. After any amount of time, they're always up to something. So they add a bunch of dates. They're going on this tour. They end up adding some more dates, which extend the tour into early 2003. One of those venues added to the list was a nightclub in Rhode Island called The Station. Now, The Station had a capacity of 404 people, and on February 20th, 2003, Jack Russell's Great White, they set up their gear, and they're about to play to a overly full room. So, the band had brought along some pyrotechnics, which would go off right at the beginning of the set. The pyrotechnics would create a sort of wall of sparkles effect, and Jack would be kind of in the center of it. This would be the start of their set, and then they would go into the song Desert Moon. Mark stood nervously on the stage. He was concerned about the pyrotechnics, and Jack promised him that they would be safe. In the crowd, a local TV station is filming a video for a piece that's ironically surrounding nightclub safety.
Oh my God.
This video serves as a major piece of evidence later on, as it covers essentially the entire event that's about to transpire. I don't recommend watching it. It's, like I said, one of those videos that's on all the gore sites, the live leaks, the fucked up places, the underbelly of the internet.
That's awful.
Yeah. So some of you, when you were teenagers like me, might have stumbled on it.
Yeah, on accident.
Yeah, and watched the whole thing like I did a long time ago. So I also had to watch it for this. But yeah, I don't recommend it. So anyway, the set begins, and the band's tour manager, Dan Beakley, he lights the pyrotechnics off. They go off successfully. At first, it does actually create a pretty cool effect. And the song comes in right on time. It sets this really electric vibe in the room. They're in this small venue. It's packed. There's sparks flying everywhere behind the band. It's pretty cinematic. The crowd is into it. They're banging their heads. They're jumping up and down. Until a few seconds later, in the right-hand corner, a small flame is seen. And some part of the soundproofing for the venue catches fire.
Oh, dude, soundproofing is extremely flammable.
And we'll talk about just how flammable it is.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Particularly here. And this fire begins in the top right corner of the soundproofing, and it is spreading fast. People in the crowd, they start pointing and screaming to the band, who keep playing. They're totally oblivious. Within moments, the whole stage is ablaze. People are trying to escape. Jack says into the mic, quite calmly, he says, "Wow, that's not good."
Oh my God. Dude.
Yeah. The band finally starts getting out of there. On the video, you can no longer see the stage. It's just entirely flame. At this point, there's 462 people in here. Remember, the capacity was 404? So, yeah, they made sure to fill it up beyond capacity. So, makes matters worse here. All 462 in attendance are now pretty much trying to cram their way through a single narrow hallway that leads to the entrance, all while these flames are fast approaching behind them. Jack and Mark, they made it outside pretty quick, and they went through a different door, and they did not realize the severity of the fire that was going on inside. Jack was allegedly doing interviews, and Mark was calling his wife, explaining that there was a fire and that they might go back on as soon as it's put out. Meanwhile, on the inside, there's hundreds of people still remaining trapped. The main entrance has become this impassable bottleneck. There's hundreds of people trapped in what is now a crowd crush, which is where you're restricted to movement.
Yeah, they can't get out.
You can't get out.
Stuck.
Yeah, you're literally like trapped, and some people can't even breathe. You can't. You're so like compacted, you can't breathe in because your lungs are compressed that much.
I mean, if you've not that it's the same at all, but if you've been in a crowd at a festival, I know we've been in a crowd at a festival before where we saw King Gizzard. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of fun, but we were absolutely smushed.
Yeah.
And you got to hold your arms out in front of your chest so that you can breathe.
And it happens all the time. I mean, the Travis Scott concert, that was a crowd crush incident. That's 9 people died there, I think. And that was because of that whole crowd crush thing, trampling.
They were over capacity or something similar.
Yeah.
And that, I know this is almost irrelevant, but it makes me think, who is actually liable?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know about this, but I remember that Travis Scott thing, and I remember thinking, I was like, it's got to be either the venue or the promotional team that's putting this on.
Yeah.
Or it's I don't know how to say this. I don't necessarily think it's entirely the artist's fault.
Yeah.
While they should keep an eye out, but if you've been on a stage and have had lights in your face,
you can hardly see anything.
You have and people are yelling.
You can see the first few rows.
And there are a lot of people. This has not happened personally, but screaming because they're so excited.
Yeah.
You know?
It's confusing. You're not expecting that
and you
kind of.
Don't think it's doomsday.
Yeah, I mean,
at the very least.
People scream at concerts. That's like the whole point. So that's not going to alarm you necessarily. So anyway, back to this story, which that's a good point because the legal battle later on, it's very similar to that. Like as to who is at fault and all that. So, like I said, hundreds of people are crowd crushed right now trying to get through the hallway of this small venue, and it's here some people are beginning to be trampled before the flames can even get to them. Just a fucking nightmare right here. Others try to escape out of the windows by the bar, trying to smash them open and squeeze themselves through. Firefighters, they arrive 4.5 minutes after the fire begins.
Wow.
And they get to work trying to spray down the flames and get people out. But the fire keeps growing, and it grows with extreme speed. Within 6 minutes of the fire beginning, the entire building is fully engulfed in flames.
My God.
Yeah. As the building burns, the screams, this is the most disturbing part. You can hear a bunch of screams in the video. And as the video goes on, it just goes quieter and quieter and quieter until it's literally silence. Like,
I'm not watching that.
Yeah, you shouldn't. It's just, and you know what that means. So, allegedly, some people were seen walking around with their hair and clothes all burnt off. It's a fucking nightmare scene right here. By 12:07 in the morning, which is exactly an hour after the performance began, a large portion of the station had collapsed from the damages. And now we're getting to the aftermath, and it was totally devastating. 96 people died immediately in the fire.
My God.
4 more succumbed to their injuries later. So the total death toll was 100 people. One of those who passed was a guitarist in the band named Ty Longley. So he died in the fire along with the other 99 people. 230 people were injured, and only 132 were uninjured unscathed. They got out fine.
What?
So absolutely devastating. I mean, I really can't. It cannot be overstated how pivotal and massive this fire was. I mean, this is still talked about every year in Rhode Island, especially East Coast. Absolutely huge part of venue safety, nightclub safety, all this. It was one of the big things that sparked all the new laws and how severely they're actually enforced. It's one of the huge moments in venue safety and Rhode Island's history. I mean, it was devastating.
I feel like you hear, not to take other things lightly.
Yeah.
But you'll hear about a tornado
Mm-hmm.
or something similar, like a natural disaster that, kills 15 people.
Yeah.
And it's a tragedy. I mean, it is, anyone dying is a tragedy. But,
Gets more press.
it gets more press. 15, 20 people. A tornado comes through
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Or Kentucky. We've been having a lot more natural disasters and stuff like that. So 10, 20, 30 people die. And it's huge news.
Yeah.
And I know I was young when this took place, but that is insane.
Mm-hmm.
That is an insane amount of people.
It's one of those things where you're like, how is this not taught in school,
Yeah.
It was a really big deal, but I'm guessing, it was 9/11, that whole era kind of maybe overshadowed it along other events. But, I mean, you could really make a podcast just on this fire.
You could.
The events transpiring, the individual recountings, the court proceedings. There is so much stuff about this. There's online forums that I found that had 7,000-8,000 posts, all regarding individual experiences, evidence. I mean, it's such a big deal. I really can't overstate that. So this is a big deal,
That's
especially in the state
worse.
Yeah. And man, I mean, it was so catastrophic, and there were many reasons why this fire was particularly catastrophic, and I'll go into those now. So the pyrotechnics obviously were the catalyst. The band had been using these pyrotechnics in other places on this tour. It had caused complications among venue owners and the band in some other of these places. It had been successful in others. At the station, the owners argued the use of pyrotechnics and how they were not included in the rider, which is a list of demands or requests that artists provide to venues to carry out their show. And the pyrotechnics were essentially just fireworks being used indoors. They were literally like sparklers. So regardless of these fireworks being used, the station was also not properly equipped at all for any sort of fire, just period, any sort of fire. The club didn't have a sprinkler system. There was a fire alarm, but that fire alarm was not set up to automatically notify the fire department if it went off. So the only way firefighters even knew about this was because people inside the venue were calling 911 after they got outside or to a safe place. There was also a police officer that was there, and he called it in once he was outside. So the station, the soundproofing, there was also a particularly flammable form of sound insulation that was used to treat the entire venue. And by particularly flammable, I'm talking it is the most flammable foam that you could possibly find on the market. The foam was sold to the venue by a company called American Foam, and the type they sold to the owners of the station contained polyurethane, which, I mean, you were in a biology major once upon a time. Do you know anything about that?
I can tell you, not from that, but we can take a side note here. I don't know if this is appropriate to talk about at all.
Yeah.
On the first episode of this podcast, but I know someone whose friend burned to death in a studio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know how it actually started, but the soundproofing just immediately because it was a small room, a small
Right.
studio.
Yeah.
The whole place was gone
Yeah.
in like 6 minutes, 7
It's fucked
minutes.
up.
Yeah. So I just know about that, and
Yeah.
then I looked it up and stuff like that.
It's horrific. But yeah, so that sucks. This is awful too. The foam, I'm sure that was extremely flammable as well, as you said. This one, they did tests on it, on the flammability of it, to measure like exactly how flammable it was. Once again, it contained polyurethane, which American Foam, the company that sold it to them, they knew it was extremely flammable, but they never mentioned it. And they tested that foam, and they performed a test by setting a piece of it ablaze and temping as well, the timing. So they timed it, they temped it, they set it on fire, trying to measure how flammable it was. And this type of foam can only withstand around 200 degrees of heat before combusting. That's not very much, especially in a hot, sweaty venue.
Yeah.
Covered by machines that are always on and powerful, producing volts.
If you can look up YouTube videos,
Yeah.
just look up soundproofing, lighting it on fire. I don't know, but I've seen them.
We could light some of this on fire.
Oh, your whole house would burn down.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Jesus. So, yeah, 200 degrees of heat is the only leeway they had before this insulation would combust in the flames. So, as you can imagine, when it was hit directly by fireworks, it didn't take long for the foam to reach that temp, and then the foam would then rapidly heat up to as high as 800 degrees within seconds. So the venue was lined with this stuff everywhere. And also, apparently from survivors of the fire, it was said that there were bouncers, and they were still blocking one of the 4 exits during the fire because it was a door meant only for the bands to use. So while this fire is raging on, the bouncers are using up crucial seconds that could have been used to get a lot of people out because they were just blocking it off because it was a band door. So some idiocy right there. Because of all this, some people put it out there that they put the blame onto the victims who were attending the concert as to why the death toll was so high. They say they were drunk and sloppy, which led them to their deaths. But I think after listening to all those factors and how aggressive the fire was, how fast it was, the venue not being equipped for such a thing, the narrow corridors, the capacity not being enforced strictly, there's almost no chance of survival for a lot of these people, very sadly. So the legal repercussions of the fire, they were mainly focused on the tour manager, Dan Beakley, and the owners of the station, who were Michael and Jeffrey Derderian. We'll go on to Dan's trial, and dude, I feel awful for Dan. And one might expect the person who lit those fireworks, Dan, to just simply be like an immediate pariah. He would just get thrown into jail. The town would be like, fuck this guy. Bury him under the jail for all I care. This guy's a dick, careless dick. But that was not the case at all for Dan. Even though he did light those pyrotechnics, which caused the fire, he showed, and I mean this, the most sincere remorse that you could possibly express throughout this whole trial. I mean, he went against his lawyer's advice. He entered a guilty plea, which was against his lawyer's discretion. He was sobbing pretty much the whole time.
Man.
He was gutted about this. He pled guilty to 100 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
Oh my God.
And on May 10th, 2006, Dan was sentenced to 15 years in prison with 4 to serve and 11 suspended. And he would also have 3 years of probation on top of that. So following this sentence, there was a surprisingly large number of families who lost their loved ones to the fire, and they still wrote letters to the state parole board to have Dan out on parole. One of these letters written by Leland Hoisington, who lost her 28-year-old daughter, Abby, to the fire. She wrote, I think they should not even bother with a hearing. Just let Beakley out. I just don't find him as guilty of anything. Another letter was written by Dave Kane and Joanna O'Neill. They lost their 18-year-old son, Nicholas O'Neill, to the fire. He was the youngest who died in the fire. And they wrote, in the period following this tragedy, it was Mr. Beakley alone who stood up and admitted responsibility for his part in this horrible event. He apologized to the families of the victims and made no attempt to mitigate his guilt. So yeah, he had a lot of support.
Dude, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. And man, I watched the testimony for him. It's fucking
Awful.
gut-wrenching.
I can't imagine.
Crying his eyes out. It is really hard to watch. But he was released from prison on March 19th of 2008. And as far as I know, he moved to Florida to rebuild his life with his wife and 2 kids. And yeah, so hopefully he is in a better place.
Hope he's
recovering
okay
from that.
That's awful.
A lot of families who were involved in the fire, they went to as great of lengths as calling Dan a scapegoat for the whole situation. And they placed the real blame on the owners of the station. So we'll now move into the testimony for the station's owners, who were Jeffrey and Michael Derderian. So right before the 2 separate trials were to commence for both of these brothers, the 2 pleaded a no contest. So Michael received the exact sentence as Dan, 15 years with 4 served, 11 suspended, and 3 years of probation. Jeffrey received 500 hours of community service. So must not have been very involved or something in the venue. I'm not sure.
He must have, been an owner, but at home.
Yeah,
or
like
something
not
like that.
No say in anything, maybe. I don't know. Michael was released in June of 2009. And since the fire, there has been at least $115 million paid out as settlements to the affected families of the fire. So yeah, that's it for the fire. Horrible fucking tragedy. Jesus Christ, I'm so sorry to all those people. Just everything involved was so shitty. And so we're back to the band.
Oh my God.
Great White. They rage on. This did not deter them from making music. So they went on a benefit tour, which lasted until 2005 to help raise money for families affected by the fire. The second leg of the tour was canceled, though, for quote-unquote medical reasons that Jack was suffering. But the truth is he was delving too deep into cocaine and booze.
Oh, my God, dude.
But, at this point, God, I can't even... It's hard to place blame.
They say addiction is a disease.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
So you could call it medical reasons.
It's true. Technically it is. But, after the fire, though, I don't know.
That's awful.
I would probably be...
Try and stop doing and just get some money for the people.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard to judge him for doing drugs after such a thing, but hopefully he can clean himself up a little here. So
yeah,
Jack was in recovery for all of 2006. He was trying to stay sober while also getting a facelift somewhere in there. Guess he had money for that. In 2006, the Great White, not Jack Russell's Great White, reforms. This is the original Great White. They're back in 2006. The lineup was going to be Jack, Mark, Michael Lardy, Sean McNabb, and somehow they brought back Audie.
What?
Yeah.
Audie's like,
wrote that whole thing, and he's like, okay.
Maybe he spent all his money.
Maybe they offered him $300 or something. I got to. That's good money. Damn. Okay. Anyway, this lineup. This is pretty much the original band for at least the last years of the band's survival in the 90s. So it's pretty much the same lineup as that. And this lineup of the reformed members, it lasts until 2008. And then Sean McNabb, the bassist, he leaves to devote himself to acting. And
awesome.
Yeah, good for him. He was replaced by Scott Snyder.
It's Snyder
and yeah,
Cut.
Sean McNabb does have an IMDb. I don't know what he's been in. I don't know if he's doing porn or like
Breaking
actual
Bad.
stuff. Yeah, Breaking Bad. It could be either or.
Hector.
Or Breaking Bad porn. Who knows? So Sean McNabb.
I've been bad.
I've been so bad. I've broken bad.
I'm broken.
Oh, anyway, Sean McNabb would go on to join the band Dokken.
Okay.
Don Dawkins. Dokken. I don't know what the fuck his name is.
I don't know.
Dokken sounds cooler, but
Yeah.
like it's 2 Ks, so it makes me want to say Dokken. But he joined his band, which, if we remember, he was Alan Niven's roommate who introduced Alan to Great White.
Is this band old?
Yeah.
They've been around?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
My theory is it's the same band from the very beginning when he went to Alan, when Don went to Alan
Okay.
for
Yeah.
distribution. Way back when they first met. So in 2010, Jack's needing a fill-in, and they bring in Janie Lane from Warrant to replace his vocals. So Jack was out of commission after suffering from a perforated bowel, which sounds
Oh my God.
awful. Like, how does that happen? It sounds like
What's he doing down
it's
there?
like someone poked you.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
when your stomach rips.
It's like that boat life. Not
Or-
treating him well.
I guess intestine, but
Maybe it's all those
Something.
drugs, probably,
yeah.
Tore a hole in him.
Thin out your lining.
Yeah, man. Jeez. So he must have been really going at it for that to happen, I guess. Then they introduced Terry Lau, I think is the name. Terry Lau of XYZ, who was filling in. And then they replaced Terry Lau with Paul Shortino of Quiet Riot.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty cool, right?
Weird though.
So they go through a lot of vocalists.
Step down.
Yeah, so
Maybe.
Jack's out of commission. They bring in Janie Lane. Then they go to Terry Lau. Then they go to Paul Shortino. Then they go back to Terry Lau, who became a more permanent member, covering for Jack as the band awaited his return. Everyone seems to be in good standing at this point. Everyone is wishing Jack a speedy recovery. And in December of 2011, Jack had let the band know he still wouldn't be able to join by February of the next year, which was their new kind of rejoin date for him. They wanted him to be back by then. But a few days after that, Jack is able to pull off an agreement with the licenses to Great White's music, and he forms his own band with entirely new members under Jack Russell's Great White. So he pulls the rug out from under them,
Wow.
out of the blue. And right away, Great White makes statements about how this is a horrible move on Jack's part, how he can't perform the songs, and he can't play under a name with Great White in the title. So they also threaten legal intervention to anyone who books Jack Russell's Great White. And for 2 years, the two Great Whites battle it out before they finally come to a sort of compromise. Jack agrees to forfeit all of his rights to Mark, Michael, and Audie, and in exchange, the bandmates allowed a way for Jack to continue playing under Jack Russell's Great White, while Mark, Michael, and Audie would continue the original band under Great White with Terry Lau as their new singer.
Man.
So they hashed it out, I guess, in court or whatever.
Those rights, those royalties must not be that much.
I guess.
You
Yeah.
can't imagine. I don't think they're.
Yeah, they might have lost some value there.
But it's more like ego.
Yeah. It's a weird sort of betrayal right there, out of the blue.
How
But,
old are they? They're like 40 or 50.
Right now, they're like 40s, 50s,
Okay.
60s even maybe. So they're getting up there. And so for several years, both Great White and Jack Russell's Great White, they still play shows. They're just in their own two little worlds,
Side by side.
coexisting. They'll play a festival here and there, a club, go on a little tour run. And there's albums that are worked on and they're released. And now we're in 2018. July 9th of 2018, Terry Lau is let go from Great White. According to Terry, he only found out through an email and social media. Mark would later say that the chemistry just wasn't there and there's nothing personal. They bring in Mitch Malloy to replace Terry.
Who
I don't
is
know.
he?
I don't know who that
Yeah.
is. Some dude named Mitch.
Hmm.
July 9th, 2020. 2 years later, Great White plays a festival in Mitch's hometown, Dickinson, North Dakota. The band was under fire after this for a bit because the festival was in the midst of COVID. There were no mask mandates at the
about to
festival.
say 2020. I was like, how?
Yeah. So they're
just doing
They're
it
those.
at this
There's
point.
that out of touch bar
Yeah.
band. That's essentially what they are now, except they're a peg above that, but they're behaving the same way. May 31st. May 31st. Jesus. 31st. God Lord. All right. 2022. 34th of 2022. Great White once again replaces their vocalist. They ditch Mitch Malloy and they bring in a guy named Andrew Freeman. October 19th, 2022. Andrew Freeman leaves the band for other commitments. And they bring on a guy named Brett Carlisle as the new vocalist. These guys just sound like club football players at this
Sounds
point.
like they bring people in with a really good, we've done all this.
Yeah.
And we can offer you this much money or something like that. And then they play with them for a month and they're like, you didn't pay me.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave. Yeah, that might be it. I don't know. But not with Brett, because Brett sticks around.
Nice.
I guess they like Brett. July 17th, 2024. Jack Russell now. We're switching over. Different Great White. Jack Russell's Great White. Makes a statement saying he would no longer be touring after he has been diagnosed with Lewy body dementia and multiple system atrophy.
Damn.
And on August 7th, 2024, not even a month later, Jack is dead at the age of 63.
Dude.
Great White, the original, is still playing to this day, with their current lineup being Brett Carlisle on vocals, Mark Kendall on guitar, Michael Lardy on guitar and keyboards, and Audie Desbrel on drums, Scott Snyder on bass. Sadly, many of the past members of Great White, though, are no longer with us. I'll go through them now. Lauren Black, he was a bassist. I don't even think we even talked about him. He died at 50 on September 27th, 2013, possibly from congestive heart failure. Then we have Don Costa, the knuckle guy.
Oh.
The cheese grater knuckle man. He's also a bassist. He died of a heart attack on May 29th, 2024, at the age of 65. Ty Longley, obviously, he was a guitarist, and he died in the station fire on February 20th, 2003, at the age of 31.
Oh, man.
He's fucking horrible. Janie Lane, singer, that was a brief fill-in singer, died August 11th, 2011, at 47 years old of acute alcohol poisoning. So,
Dang.
the band tours on.
Still?
Yep. And for now, that's the story of Great White.
All right, I have a question for you after all of this.
All right.
Would you go see them?
Yes.
I think after all of this, I would go see them.
Yeah, you think?
Just to look.
Yeah, just to look
Just
at
to
them.
look at them. Just to look.
like it's a petting zoo.
I want to
Look
pet
at
the
these
goat.
little guys.
I feel like it wouldn't be that hard to, it wouldn't be that hard or that much to get a VIP.
Probably not.
No, and go talk to them.
They're kind of like relics, They're kind of like time capsules of the 80s.
And they've lost their value.
Yeah.
You bought a new car and you drove it off the lot. And then you
like-
drove it to a wall.
They're like a Plymouth
Yeah.
or a Saturn.
It's definitely a Saturn.
Yeah, Saturn.
Dude.
Dude, but like, they were there and they lived through it. They're still here today.
It's true.
They were right there with Kiss, Alice Cooper, Scorpions.
They had a
lot
good
of other
time.
people.
Yeah.
They had a damn fine time. They lived through it.
I mean, doing
Some of
all that
Yeah.
and drugs.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's crazy.
So I commend them for that. Music, people seem varied on their reception to the band. You got the diehards. You've got people that hate them because of the fire.
Yeah.
You've got people that just hate them because they grew up in the 80s and they didn't like them.
And they're tired of that radio. Yeah.
And, so that's the story of Great White. If you liked that, thanks for sticking around and listening to it. we're new to this, obviously. This is episode 1, and I've heard it's beneficial to rate the show.
So yeah, try that.
And follow along.
It's our destiny.
Yeah, it's our destiny
to have episode 2, which I will be hosting.
Yes. So what we're gonna do? You want to explain?
Yeah, sure. It's a little different this episode because we had to get on the same base. So I heard a little bit about the artist beforehand. But we are going to trade off who hosts this show. So next time you'll be hearing my voice. It'll be real nice.
We'll be hearing a lot of him.
A lot of me. I'll be bringing a pop filter.
Yes.
To get all my breathing out of the way. I have a big nose. It blasts a lot of air at the microphone.
Got a big schnoz.
But we'll be picking bands that have fallen off, had something happen. I don't know. We might even do more recent people. Just anything that's interesting to either one of us.
We don't discriminate on era or genre.
No. But there's a lot of juicy stuff from the past. So
absolutely.
Next time I will be hosting. He will not know who I'll be talking about, and anything he knows about them, if he does, will be from his own life.
Yes.
So
I have no idea.
I'm going to pick somebody random. It could be an artist. It could be a engineer. It could be somebody in the music scene. Typically, we're going to try to stick to artists, but I've got a few other people I have in mind as well. So I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be different perspectives from two different people, different reactions, and different stories. It'll be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I think that's all I've got. Got anything else for the people?
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
All right. We'll fish you later.